what about you, eyeballs? What did you see?
It couldn't have been me, sir. I was front row in my AOC t-shirt, foie gras sucking on a press release, sir. My head down, fourth shot, good little sheep, sir. Sit down, sweetie. The adults are gonna speak first. They trust the science and they're terrified of research. Here to thank our healthcare heroes, they've been feeding to the burnout, feet first. Until suddenly they dip mid-shift, take a header off a bridge. Such a shame, they were really such a sweet nurse. Now they'll never get the card and the cold slice of pizza meant to thank them for their teamwork. Now they'll never get the baggie full of checks mixed, which would be the one reward they'd see for the moms they had to intubate. And the countless cries of grief since we've been haunted by the specter of the C word. Now all the applause for our healthcare heroes rings a very hollow note because we played it out like Freebird. See, add the ones and zeros in our fragile checks and balances are checks for all the wealthy who have such unholy talents that we think it's patriotic that we all got zero balances. And re-elect Pelosi so she'll face our toughest challenges. Which is analogous to water for a drowning man. Nancy disregards our impoverished with a spiteful and dismissive little waving of her withered hand. Cause 500,000 freezing on the streets is Biden's winter plan. And I bet you swore they told you were voting for a different man. But really all you wanted was a different man. It didn't make a fucking difference if he finishes the previous inhabitant's agenda and starts auctioning protected land. Biden's born to leap at any war a donor's check demands. Turns out that you can't cure greed once it infects a man. Once they lose respect for human life and focus all their fucking efforts on the oil baron rescue plan. Honey, what are we to Hecuba or Hecuba to us that if she's starving we should give a damn? Why should we be moved to tears if someone isn't eating? We won't even recognize that food is essential to our being. It's just us and motherfucking Israel who will not guarantee that food's a basic human right. Because starvation is our favorite tool of genocide disguised as sanctioned democratic healing. That's me in the corner, losing my religion, gouging out my eyes and then dancing on the ceiling. Jesus fucking Christ, what a feeling.
Hey, what about you, eyeballs? What did you see?
That's how it goes. We won't open our eyes, so we're the last ones to know. We're the last ones alive. Kept our enemies close. Wondered why we don't thrive while we're grasping at ghosts. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5.
Count back from 5. The theater on fire, the cast on strike. The studio stock starts taking a dive. The contract's tossed and they're gone with the tide. And the heads and execs, their hands are tied. We can't pump this dreck and treat you, right? But what do you expect from the industry type who survive by the leeching of bodies and minds? From those who original thoughts never seem to find. So they're gonna reboot ALF before your wages rise. And it gives cause to pause and reflect on the times. If they're losing control of their fools and their mimes, when all those obedient actors who grew their careers by averting their eyes are now holding the line, along with the authors of countless scripts that strengthen the hand of that corporate grip, squeezing our throats till we take the pen and we accept and consent to the corporate drip. Till you're all up to date on your pharma du jour, till you got a healthy support for the war on your lips. And now you know that the advertisers need more than a rerun summer full of flashback clips. Enter the scans from the year before, all the days of de-aging and mapping the face, and the hours of actors recording their voices are links in the chains that will bind them in place. Now all of those shows are so easy to make. When they got a drone they control that needs no break, it can bend, it can break, and it's cheaply replaced enough up-to-date films all in one take. And those studios bank on us doing our duty, unhinging our jaws and digesting the fakes, because they know that we'll love how synthetic it tastes. Watch as they edit your features without any trace. Not that there's anything you could do anyway. Now watch as they show you a movie you saying shit you would never say. Dystopia boldly accelerates. Maybe you're only a mold, something to fill with a clone, something that Elon would celebrate. Something they own, something they program and code, something that's woefully able to know it's exanimate. Cause it doesn't feel touch over top of the laminate. You will not feel an emotion, but they will not scan and examine it. You and the other consumer contaminants fed on the federal diet of Kiev, Havana, and Tiananmen. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment.
Where did you think we'd go? Love, there's nowhere to lie. Guess it's not who you know, more it's what you can hide. Like we're chained to the floor, they're streaming us live while we're watching the war, counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards.
Our society and our world are full of these invented and built up and contrived facades. And sometimes some people come along with a hammer and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees, so there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream, and for premium subscribers doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there. It can analyze your speech, and if it hears disinformation, then it notifies police. It's a swift re-education, but it knocks you off your feet like your booster every 7th week. I faced the future boldly with 2 eager open eyes, and I picked a couple nuggets up that blew my fucking mind, like you can taxidermy someone while they're technically alive, and they'll shine when it's election time. See, the Democratic voter base will pay them zero. Never mind if voting for the scarecrow is a vote along their party lines. They could stare into its marble eyes and claim there's something dignified. Unlike real politicians, this one doesn't need an oxygen or kit supply. But its function is the same as those who came before. The goals are never misaligned.
It still spends all its working time performing pre-recorded fleecing sessions where it sugarcoats your slow and hungry genocide, while pouring billions into Nazi coffers, all the while selling you the story that we're moments till the MiGs arrive. So fuck it, ask Zelensky if he'll help replace our leaded pipes. Watch a fleet of Penske's show, stacks of bills in every size. Guess it only took a black sun and a couple Hiles. Honorary goose step in some Nazi boots a quarter mile, all while Biden sneers his sordid smile. I don't know what was in this morning's vial, but it makes him stare 1,000 yards through all the prompters and the cards like he can smell the nearest child. His eyes are wide and wild, wider than the grave in which another 1,000 families were tossed in as I typed until they rose up to the sky unceremoniously piled. Which sort of flies right in the face of all this network ticker tape where the American economy has superhuman vitals.
And sometimes some people come along with a hammer.
See, I like to think my trial's gonna play like a recital. I'll denounce the world around me and accuse the most entitled, who weaponize their titles, whose pull is something tidal, who'd starve us all to death to best delight their blinded idol. So they might destroy the record, and I will never get to vinyl. So my word is not immortal, but it's final.
It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Hi, everybody. Whoa, holy crap, it actually worked. Okay, so we are live on a new place tonight. I'm very excited. I can't be more excited. We're live on Substack. Holy crap, I can't believe it.
Coming to a Substack newsletter near you.
Yes, we certainly are. And coming live on Substack to you now. Wow.
Phrasing,
yeah. Well, thanks. That's Reef, by the way. I'm Indy. For
calm
those
down,
who
bro.
don't know already.
Calm down.
Okay, I'm a little pumped.
That's on the other site. That's on the other site.
Wait,
Supposed to do it on the other site.
what? No. Hey, so yeah, we got old friends, we got new friends in the house. Backyard politics. Oh, I made that logo for you, and I'm so proud of it. Still, it's one of my favorite things I ever made. And I remember you asked. I never forgot about it. And yes, we're gonna do boats later on the Ocho as well. So stay tuned for that afterwards. But this is How Do We Miss That? So welcome to everyone on Substack that's never seen the show before. This is a live show that we do every Sunday night at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. I haven't done a spiel in a while like this. We talk about independent media. We amplify independent journalists, and we talk about labor. We talk about Gaza and Palestine. We talk about corruption and big business and how they're screwing over the rest of society. And what can we do about it? It's not just about doomerism, but it's also about how we can fight back and that we're not alone. And that's what we do here. And the reason why we called it How Do We Miss That is because we try to go a little bit deeper than the stories that you see on average throughout the week and try to find a couple things that you might have missed throughout the week. Sometimes we'll also cover something big and popular, but usually we'll try to go a little deeper. We're, just about exclusively using independent sources, meaning no corporate media, and sponsor-free media is really important. That we're getting paid by our audience and nobody else, and we're not answering to anybody but sponsors. Really important that we do that. So I have 4 stories.
Independent means.
Oh,
user
that's
funded.
Right.
Very simple.
Well, that's what yes, anyway, we're going to talk about some stories tonight. And then we're going to get to our React show, which is on a separate show called Boats Smashing into Other Boats. I didn't even set that up for Substack tonight. It is usually set up as a podcast, and it's on our channel, INN8 The Ocho, on YouTube and Rumble, because we don't want the news content to go on a news channel. But we're going to get to some news right now. Before we do, Like we said, support independent media. The way that we do that is we're user funded. We don't take sponsors. We don't do ad reads. We don't have promo codes. We have you. So those are the amazing people that have already supported our channel. If you're able to, and of means, please drop a couple bucks at one of those places: Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, INN Newsletter, or IndieMediaToday.com over at Substack. Those are the best ways to support our channel and everything that we're doing here to amplify independent media. And again, those incredible people have already done so, and we love them and appreciate them deeply. Would not be able to do this without them. So our first story is actually a video, and it came from Substack, funny enough. So let's get to it. All right.
You gonna share your screen?
Oh, see, rookie move. Indy missed the rookie move. Okay, so let's share my screen with Reef so he can actually see it. And then I have to do the audio share too to make sure he can hear it. He can. Okay, this is a video by Indie Media Award honoree Jonathan K. Cook. Indie Media Awards are something we came up with 3 years ago to honor the best in independent media, to showcase the ones who have been doing it right consistently and getting it right the most often. That's the sound that goes with Indie Media Awards. I didn't hear yours, Reef. But Jonathan Cook shared a video. No, I didn't. Shared a video from Declassified UK, another independent Indie Media Award honoree for top independent outlet. All right, where they're chasing down an admiral to ask him about why are we spying on, for Israel, on behalf of Israel? What's going on here? So let's hear what Declassified did.
Admiral Radican, Chief of the Defence Staff, lovely to meet you today. I'm a journalist from Declassified UK. We've been trying for months to get answers about the Royal Air Force surveillance flights that you're sending over Gaza and the intelligence that you're sharing with Israel. Have you got any comment on those that you can give to us?
The volume on that.
Public accounts.
It's as loud as it goes.
Committee hearing, and I don't really have time for this conversation. Thank you.
We can fix that in OBS.
This is a matter of the gravest importance. Israel's Prime Minister is wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes.
Can we? Because it's Pete.
Are you going to tell the Public Accounts Committee how much these flights are costing the public?
Yeah, if you pause it, it's peaking on OBS.
Sharing intelligence.
I'm maxed out, but sorry everyone. Can you not do this now? Thank you.
With the Prime Minister of a country that's wanted by the International Criminal Court, Admiral. Is this why you joined the military, sir? Are you a disgrace to your uniform? Do you have trouble sleeping at night, seeing the images coming out from Gaza? We're here with Britain's most senior military official. He's on his way to Parliament, but he won't answer questions from the press about why the Royal Air Force has sent over 500 surveillance flights over Gaza since December 2023. He won't tell us how much those cost, even though he's going to a Public Accounts Committee to talk about the defence budget. And he won't tell us why he keeps sharing intelligence with Israel, a country that's being investigated for genocide, a country whose Prime Minister is wanted for war crimes, including the crime of starvation, by the International Criminal Court, and we are being pushed away from him by armed police who are escorting him into Parliament. Why won't you answer these basic questions about what the Royal Air Force is doing over Gaza and the intelligence it's sharing with Israel? Do you routinely share intelligence with countries whose leaders are wanted for war crimes by the International Criminal Court, Admiral? Are you a participant in Israel's genocide, Admiral? Do you have blood on your hands, Admiral?
Silence.
You have blood on your
What are you trying
hands?
to hide about the intelligence that you've been sharing with Israel? So that was Admiral Radican, the Chief of the Defence Staff, Britain's most senior military officer, who's just gone into Parliament behind me to answer questions from the Public Accounts Committee about the defence budget. But he won't answer questions from MPs and from the press about how much the Royal Air Force has spent on over 500 surveillance flights over Gaza. And yet when we try and put these questions to Admiral Radican, we were being blocked there by the police.
Yep. They don't want to answer any of these questions. And as Jonathan Cook says, this is what real journalism looks like. Go ahead.
Especially when it comes to the fact that they've been using their flights for continued spying, continued assists of Israel, among other, like their own citizens over there coming back, committing their own genocide. Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's just despicable.
So, as Jonathan Cook says, this is what real journalism looks like. You may notice that you'll never see Guardian or the BBC doing this, holding senior UK defense, quote unquote, officials. And who's exactly attacking the UK again? Directly to account for their active role in assisting Israel in committing war crimes. All right. So that's number one. And guess what? They did it again. The other day or today. I noticed they put it up actually earlier today, noon Eastern. I saw this one, and let me give it context. What is this? UK Trade Secretary has approved arms sales to Israel and is negotiating a trade agreement right now with Tel Aviv. So they confronted him about his complicity in genocide. And of course, what did he do? He ran away. We've got about 2 minutes here. Here we go.
Minister Reynolds, why are you still allowing arms exports to Israel?
We have
Our British
already made measures on that.
being used to kill children in Gaza, sir. Do you have blood on your hands, Minister Reynolds? Why can't you stop these arms exports? Are the US not letting you? Do you have blood on your hands, sir? So I'm outside Chatham House, where Jonathan Reynolds, the Business and Trade Secretary, has just gone in for a speech at a global trade event. We asked him why Britain is still allowing arms exports to Israel. Although there's supposedly an embargo, we know that fighter jet parts for Israel's most deadly fighter jets are still being allowed to leave British factories. They go off to the US, where they're then onwards exported to Israel.
I mean, on your question on the trade strategy.
In genocide, this government is still exporting F-35 parts for Israel. Stop arming Israel!
Yeah, myself and one other activist got up, took out Palestine flags, got up on the stage in front of Jonathan Reynolds and told him he was complicit in genocide because he's the one who licenses arms exports, including parts for F-35 fighter jets, which just last week Israel used to massacre 400 people.
For this invite for this lovely...
This man and his government are complicit in genocide.
Excuse me, sir.
The F-35s are massacring Palestinians, and they have not stopped the trade of F-35s. 400 Palestinians killed last year.
Double leg.
200 children. One of the largest massacres of Palestinian children in history.
I mean, it was very physical. They weren't happy that we were there. The thing is, we will continue to show up wherever they go. And
Legend.
The most important message is to center the people of Gaza. And the risks that we take are nothing compared to the dangers that they face every single day. And it's our moral duty to make these forms of complicity visible, whether that involves a small risk to ourselves or not.
And incredible journalism by Declassified UK to go out there in the street and actually hold their leaders to account. Nobody's really doing that much here. I've seen it a little bit, but they insulate themselves so much with security, and they'll mostly do the same thing. Yeah. We see that a lot. Honestly, the person that we see doing it the most, although I believe it's done mostly for show and they dismiss it and they almost laugh about it, is when we see Medea Benjamin do that. She's probably the most prominent person I know that does that, especially with a camera on. But I don't know how much weight it actually carries with the Congress people when they say it, and when she confronts them. The video afterwards is powerful. Absolutely compelling and powerful afterwards, which is exactly why she does it, because she gets a lot of value out of it. What is it affecting? I don't know. So support Declassified for sure. Support Jonathan Cook and support INN. That was a short clip, a short segment. And again, we are only user funded here. We don't take any corporate funding, and we don't take any sponsor funding. So anything you can do, Cash App, $, Indie News Network, co-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, and INNnewsletter.com or IndieMediaToday.com. You can subscribe at either one of those for free or pick up a paid subscription if you're able. So that would be nice. CBC voter, what's going on? Good to see you. Kameshwari Kate, welcome. Go Start is over on Rumble. We are live over on Rumble. We're live again over on Substack. Fred Edward, good to see you. Thank you so much for sharing. Everyone go share Fred Edward's tweet at BAirwaves, AER Waves, and then we can get more people watching the show. Thank you. Really appreciate that. As well as over on Substack. So I think I shared something over there. That is not Max Blumenthal with a British accent. No, Phil is the new managing editor, is the new editor over at Declassified. Matt Kennard actually resigned last year from Declassified to go off on his own and do some other projects. So Mark Curtis is running it, and he hired Phil last year and a couple of other new writers that have done really good work. They've been outstanding outlet for a long time. It's not a surprise they're reloading with great people.
Yeah.
All right.
The only British people Indy likes. They're great.
No, that's not true. We're about to get to some other ones. Well, first of all, Laura at Normal Island News. I have a real thing for her, even though she's not real.
If that is your real name.
Even though she's not a real human being and it's a parody account and it's an anon, and I adore that account. It just warms my heart. But here's another one. Connected with Laura is Ricky Hale and Council of State Media. I really do like the work that they do as well. They are a 2024 Indie Media Award honoree for Top Outlet. And they came out with, again, more documentation about the UK. It's funny, this is a very UK-focused, international-focused show tonight. But this time, Freedom of Information documents show that, of course, Israel's behind the crackdown on dissent in the UK. Now, I don't know that anybody's really surprised by this. As he says, this should surprise no one. But now we've actually got it
and
in
we've seen
writing.
a couple outlets cover it recently too.
Right.
You know, Declassified touched on it. I think Grey Zone touched on it.
They did.
Clarenberg did, I think, specifically.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken.
Lots of award-winning journalists, which is why we're going to talk about it. So as Ricky states, you know
Israel essentially... Like, I mean, they've requested police crackdown specifically on multiple journalists, so, which I'm sure you're about to tell us.
Yep. So he says, you know how we've seen a massive wave of suppression in the UK with journalists, activists, social media users, and protesters being treated as terrorists? Correct. Well, you'll be unsurprised to hear this was being coordinated with the Israeli embassy. I wonder if that also was happening in Canada. A series of Freedom of Information requests have shown that Israeli interference in our justice system is extensive. Such interference is completely illegal, of course, not that anything will happen. Released emails discuss the introduction of moves to crack down on dissent, such as the Police, Crime and Sentencing and Courts Act, and coordination with Facebook and Instagram. They've done that in the United States, too. They showed the Israeli embassy pressured Attorney General's office, to clamp down on pro-Palestinian protests, just like here. And arms manufacturer Elbit Systems was regularly meeting with high-ranking officials. That's right. And they've been pressured quite a bit by protesters and activists.
Palestinian Action.
Yep.
Correct.
So redactions in the documents were justified by the Attorney General's office as the details would be likely to prejudice the UK's relations with Israel. You think? It shouldn't, because they have free speech laws in England, but apparently not. Basically, we can't know the full extent to which Israel is even interfering in our politics, because this would, of course, upset Israel. That sounds very much like Laura, by the way. The documents.
Oh no.
The documents demonstrate that Israel holds influence over government ministers, the Attorney General's office, the Crown Prosecution Service, and the police. And by the way, Prime Minister Keir Starmer as well. We've talked about how he sleeps next to the 98th most influential Zionist in the world, according to the World Zionist Congress. The latest revolution is that the AGO passed on contact details of the CPS and counterterrorism police to the Israeli embassy in a heavily redacted email. Needless to say, the CPS is supposed to be operationally independent, and there's no reason for the Israeli embassy to be in contact with it, you would think. So they got this email sent by Nicola Smith, the head of international law at the AGO, to Daniela Grutsky-Eckstein, who is Israel's deputy ambassador to the UK. And what we see again is very little, although it says Nicola Smith to Israelis re CPS SOIS contact details. So right there, you've got something. There again, here it says it's the subject contacts CPS SO15 is what it is. Okay, that's, and then everything else is redacted other than let me know if you have any questions. What do you think they're giving them there and what they're asking for there?
Yeah.
Smith and Eckstein had met 11 days prior to this email. All we know is that they discussed the people who had worked on the Palestine action case. Huh. We're not allowed to know any further details about the conversation. Isn't that nice? That's full transparency, right?
It's nice.
I think so. This is just the latest piece of evidence of Israel interfering in the Palestine action case. The CPS was having great difficulty prosecuting members of Palestine Action and other activists because when they appeared in court, juries would acquit them. Would acquit them? Well, how about that? Because they were exercising free speech and not breaking the law? Yeah. Therefore,
if the gloves fit.
Well, this isn't the United States, man. Therefore, politicians started.
In the UK, apparently they do have a right to freedom of expression, but it has restrictions that include terrorisms and hate speech and yada, yada, yada. So, FYI.
Sure.
But, yeah, continue.
So politicians started pressuring judges into not allowing defendants to explain their motivations so they could not elicit sympathy from the jury. What? How can justice possibly be served if you can't explain why you did something? No, they're just allowing themselves to frame the narrative and send you away. It sounds like how they're sending people to CCOT without charges or without any say. The rules were changed during Suella Braverman's reign of terror so that the European Convention on Human Rights would not apply in such cases, especially Julian Assange. The defendants were treated as terrorists even when they weren't charged under the Terrorism Act, even when the alleged crimes wouldn't constitute terrorism according to international legal standards. All of this was done to clamp down on dissent and protect the genocidal state of Israel and quiet not just dissent, but protest against their murdering of babies and children daily with U.S. bombs and British spy flights. One internal file admitted, quote, Palestine Action does not meet the threshold for proscription as they do not commit, participate in, prepare for, promote, encourage, or otherwise be concerned with acts of terrorism, unquote. But that doesn't matter. Despite this, the members of Palestine Action, which are the so-called Filton 18, have been in prison for over 8 months without trial because they tried to stop the UK sending arms to Israel so it can blow up children, as I said a minute ago. How can it be a crime when the UK has suspended some arms licenses on the basis that Israel is already violating international humanitarian law? I love it. It's only some arms licenses.
You violated the law.
Unbelievable. All right. If someone's going to shoot a child and you take that gun and you destroy it, you're not in the wrong. And that's essentially what Palestine Action has done. In August of last year, members of Palestine Action drove a modified prison van into an Elbit Systems factory in Bristol, causing £1 million worth of damage. The team dismantled weapon systems, including the quadcopters that mimic the sound of women and children crying to lure Palestinians into the open to be shot. Yes, I'll read that again because that sounds vaguely important. The team dismantled weapon systems, including the quadcopters that mimic the sound of women and children crying to lure Palestinians into the open to be shot, because they have humanitarian feelings and want to save someone who is crying or help them. And of course, Israel needs to prey upon that humanity and murder the people that go out to try to do that. Isn't that nice? So, of course, let's lock up the people that are trying to destroy the weapons that do that. These weapons were being sent to Israel to commit war crimes, but no one in the UK has been prosecuted for facilitating those war crimes. No surprise. I think our so-called justice system is a bit upside down, don't you? Revolution continues saying, shut Elbit Systems down worldwide. I totally agree, over on Substack. None of the Filton 18 were charged with terrorism offenses, yet they've had their rights restricted as though they were, with limits on their legal support, family visits, healthcare, and religious rights while they await trial. Again, this sounds very similar to how they treated Julian Assange. This is because they were arrested under powers granted by the Terrorism Act. How can this be anything other than an abuse of power? The problem is, who holds them accountable? They're already the people in power. It's not just the Israeli embassy that's been interfering in our justice system, of course. Freedom of Information documents show that Home Office ministers and staff have been pressuring police and prosecutors to act against Palestine action since way before October 7th. Remember, folks, this didn't start October 7th. None of this did. Their goal already was to reassure Elbit Systems. Again, profits over people all the time. Defense contractors over the people that they are sending the weapons to Israel to murder. Absurdly, a briefing note for one meeting read, quote, a director from the Attorney General's office will be attending to represent the CPS. The CPS declined to participate in this meeting to preserve their operational independence, unquote. They don't even want anything to do with this. The note admits that such a meeting would jeopardize operational independence, yet the CPS sent a representative anyway? Clearly, if you're sending a representative to the meeting, you're not preserving your operational independence. Documents confirm ministers, police, and the CPS and Attorney General were meeting with Elbit Systems to discuss Palestine action, but the details were redacted, as a Jesse Jet song very famously says also. One meeting with Elbit was attended by 3 members of Yvette Cooper's home office. That's, again, it's merger of state and private entity and defense contractor. I mean, there's a word for that, right? Yep. I believe it begins with F.
I do believe so.
Sure. So
that's just close enough.
How can it be justifiable for Elbit Systems to be meeting with such people?
Who are these people?
Not good people, I'll tell you right now. Even if you see the arms manufacturer as a victim of a crime, the only people it needs to be speaking to are police. Elbit just needs to hand over its evidence and submit witness statements. That's it. Anything beyond that is political interference. It's also collusion. It's worse than political interference. Ominously, it's been revealed by Declassified UK. Even. Yeah, maybe, sure. But either way, it's a merger of defense and state and private enterprise and the media. And now the courts.
He who controls the spice controls the universe.
Ominously, it's been revealed by Declassified UK that Elbit Systems has its own intelligence cell that coordinates with British police on a bi-weekly basis. How about that? An Israeli arms manufacturer is not just building its weapons of genocide here, it's literally spying on our citizens and telling police who to prosecute. Sounds like Beitar that's setting up operations in the United States and handing lists over to the President of the United States of who to prosecute and deport. Such interference surely violates the Crown Prosecution Service's General Principle 2.1. Quote, the independence of the prosecutor is central to the criminal justice system of a democratic society. Prosecutors are independent from persons or agencies that are not part of the prosecution decision-making process. Again, prosecutors are independent from persons or agencies that are not part of the prosecution decision-making process, like Elbit Systems.
Okay.
CPS prosecutors are also independent from the police, not in this case, and other investigators, or should be. Prosecutors must be free to carry out their professional duties without political interference and must not be affected by improper or undue pressure or influence from any source. So who's suing these motherfuckers? That's what I want to know.
Nobody. That's who.
It's worth pointing out that not only do government ministers interfere to prosecute opponents of Israel, they interfere to protect suspected war criminals such as Tzipi Livni and Gideon Saar. In the latter case, the UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, he gaslit everyone on World Press Freedom Day, we'll get into that in a minute, held a secret meeting with his Israeli counterpart and personally ensured he would not face arrest. Which is why I believe we showed on the show when Declassified UK confronted the Israeli minister that tried to sneak into that meeting with Lammy. If he can protect suspected war criminals, he can protect those who oppose war criminals, but no, definitely not. Not eat the rich. Not Motorhead. But he can obviously protect those who oppose war criminals, but he chooses not to. In fact, our government does the opposite. The clear evidence of political interference in the Filton 18 cases has led to calls for the charges to be dropped. In a democracy, any court case would be free from political interference, yet we have interference not just from our own government, but from a foreign government too. How can anybody possibly say justice is going to be served? And again, that's Ricky, Council of State Media, Indie Media Award honoree. This is from his publication, The Dystopian Times. Go subscribe to that. Good dude. Also, Sana Saeed posted something yesterday, was May 3rd, World Press Freedom Day. So you know we were gaslit like crazy by every world government that has been suppressing free speech, that has been prosecuting activists and persecuting journalists, and in Israel's case, murdering journalists. On this World Press Freedom Day, as Sana Saeed, independent journalist formerly of AJ Plus, writes, the Palestinian journalist Ahmad Bassam sends a message from a besieged Gaza. There is no press freedom without the freedom of Palestinian journalists. Over 200 Palestinian journalists and media workers have been killed by the Israelis, purposely targeted, while their slaughter ignored by our press industry. Not just them, but in some cases their entire families as well, because they decided to report on what Israel was doing to where they lived. Our only insight into what's been done to the Palestinians in Gaza, what crimes the US, UK, and Israel have committed, as well as others, has been solely through the efforts of these brave men and women. So let's watch this short video here. Oh, that's cut off. Undo.
I was asked by the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate to stand before you today because I speak English. But you don't need to be speaking more than one language to be able to describe what is being perpetrated here. In fact, very often you don't need words at all. A rolling camera is all it takes to capture crimes that humanity should have never seen. Crimes that our throats went hoarse, screaming and calling on you to stop. For over 574 days, we've been here reporting the ongoing killing of children, women, and civilians, and the wiping out of families. We've been reporting to you exclusive stories of massacred families, of carpet bombings, of children burned in their tents, of babies starved, denied milk. Reporting it to you because partially you can't get in here, but largely because it's our own duty to live stream a genocide against us to you. A genocide that claimed more than 52,000 souls of our children, families, and friends. How have we been rewarded? We've become targets and death counters. We have reported and witnessed the deliberate killing of at least 212 of Palestinian journalists inside the Gaza Strip. 10 of them were burned alive right outside that wall last month. And more will die, denied treatment, they desperately need, suffering here. And the toll will rise and rise as you allow this genocide to continue. And today, on the World's Day of Press Freedom, we stand here to remind the world that the press in Gaza is bleeding and is taken hostage by the most depraved occupation in modern history. We stand, have questions to journalists around the world who choose to stand silent before the corpses of their Palestinian journalists, asking them, are we less worthy of freedom than you are? Are we less worthy of life than you are? But we also stand to salute and send our deepest respect to every free journalist and every free person who refused to sell their voices despite temptations and intimidation, and continue to share the truth we broadcast here, to stand by our side as if they were among us. And finally, to the free world, we are exhausted and have every right to take off these useless vests. But we won't, because as we stand today, we once again vow for the blood of every child and every journalist the Israeli occupation has killed here and elsewhere, that we will not forget them. We've done our part. We'll keep it on. And it's about time you start doing yours. Thank you.
The press is free.
Man. And he's right. You know, them wearing those vests puts a target on their back.
Is a target. Yeah.
I mean, if I knew that putting that on would put a target on my back every day, would I do it? Man, that's dedication, honestly. And we don't have a free press. These people are not reported on. They're smeared in the public press, in the corporate media, and their stories are not told. And then they're treated as less than human. And it's disgraceful the way that most people have ignored this story. We have been covering it here since before October 7th, but of course, largely since October 8th, which is when Israel decided to start dropping bombs like crazy on Gaza. And they haven't stopped, other than even during their ceasefire, they were murdering Palestinians. And right now there's been a ceasefire in Lebanon and over 50 Lebanese have been killed since then. They don't cease fire. Ceasefire is just you stop, Israel keeps killing. That's what we've learned.
Yep.
So
Rafat al-Arir's
that
famous words.
Very famous. In addition, we also have Issa Amro, who reported yesterday that the soldiers raided his house today. They wanted revenge from him for participating in the BBC documentary. Where are we here? There we go. He was participating in the BBC documentary, The Settlers. Okay. That's after the army left the settlers, raided his house. All right. They injured one activist and cut the tree. They stole tools and the garage and garbage containers. I mean, all right. The Israeli police officer then came to threaten him not to file a complaint. So he'll be arrested for trying to push the settlers outside his house. It's apartheid. All right. Why didn't that turn brief back on? It was supposed to. That was weird. Sorry, man. There he goes. All right.
All right.
Me? No. No, my son. Me? No. No, me. You? Yeah. Why you have your face if you are famous? You know exactly why. No. Yeah, because you're doing something wrong. No, it's because I'm too beautiful to see you. No, come on. It's not about that. I'm too beautiful to show myself to you. Look my face.
None of them wants to show their faces.
I never cover my face.
Notice how they all know English.
It's an army. It's not you. It's an army. You do what the army tells you. And you send. No, my son. Me? No. No, me. You?
There we go.
Why you have your face if you are famous?
You know exactly why.
No.
Yeah,
because you're doing something wrong.
No, it's because I'm too beautiful to see you,
No, no, come on. It's not about that.
I'm too beautiful to show myself to you.
No, look to my face. I never cover it. I never cover my face.
Because
But
you don't need to cover it.
no, I don't need. Why you cover it? It's an army. It's not you. It's an army. You do what the army tells you.
And you send it to Gaza now.
To where?
To Gaza now.
Who's in Gaza?
To BBC, to Shobrim Shtika,
So
to
what is wrong?
B'Tselem.
What is wrong? B'Tselem is an Israeli human rights organization breaking the silence. They were ex-soldiers from Naval, from the same unit as you are. BBC is a friend of Israel.
Of course.
Yeah, Gaza. Are you afraid of Gaza anymore?
No.
Oh, so,
They are my friends, Gaza.
No, my son.
Very famous.
Me?
Right. So that's the first video.
عيال عيال عيال
Settlers looks like.
Yep, sure is. What are they doing? They just want to mess with him.
Yep.
سرد الجندي
The guy who talked to the BBC is the one who's in trouble.
خلوش عدي
Yeah. Why are they? Because they just want to. They want to go in his house. They're just screwing with him like they're
Harassment,
teenage
which is
douchebag kids.
Common tactic. Underhooks, homie.
Well, the problem is if you start fighting with them, they're gonna like you. There's 12 of them. They'll just jump on him and start kicking him.
Yeah, it's just you don't let them have free underhooks.
وطن دير بالك على التليفون باش يسرقوك مسكم منين
Again, this is because he spoke to the BBC about what the settlers do to him, and now they're doing exactly what he told the BBC they'd do to him. Just so everybody knows clearly what's going on here. Now they're just overtaking this man's property. Why? What are they doing there? They start unplugging things. Now the soldiers are stopping the guys from stopping them.
وعاد الايوه خلوش يقرب وطن امسك تليفونك ابن تعال خليك جنبي ابو عادل هون سكر.
All right, now it looks like the soldiers pushing the guys back. But he's telling the people who live there to let him deal with it. Oh, it's a mess. All right, and then you had...
I can. I
wish I had a translation there. Oh, and that's the tree that they cut. Just to, again, further screw with him. All right. They cut the tree, they injured an activist, and they stole tools and the garbage containers.
The police officer came to threaten me not to file a complaint. If so, I will be arrested for trying to push the settlers outside my house. Which is just... I don't know how that's...
So, Caitlin Johnstone says... Israelis... Right. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, like, again, they completely control everything. So, of course, that's the case. But I don't know how anyone other than, fuck, man. You know?
It's so frustrating. Yeah. So Israelis not only murder journalists, attack journalistic institutions, and block journalists from entering the Gaza Strip, they also persecute Palestinian civilians who speak with journalists, Western journalists.
Yeah.
They don't want any of this information to get out there because anyone who finds out what the hell they're doing immediately knows that it's wrong and should be stopped. Similar thread to what's happening to here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
same thing that happened to the Oscar guy as well, the one that won the Oscar.
Yes, somebody actually mentioned over Cindy, the revolution continues. Just like the settlers and the IDF beat up the director and producer of No Other Land, the Oscar-winning, award-winning producer. Correct. Yeah. And we thought the cops were bad in the U.S. Guess who trains the cops? Welcome, Michael Ginsberg over on Substack. Good to see you, man. All right, so Gen X Girl is a friend of the network, friend of the show. I've done a couple of one-on-ones with her. We are scheduled to do another one coming up this week, and this is going to be one of the things that we're going to talk about. So I wanted to set it up a little bit. She found something really, really interesting the other day. So the ADL, we all know the ADL is a shit organization that has literally been deemed by Wikipedia to be not credible and completely biased, partisan, and not legitimate. So what she found is that on their website, they have been co-publishing and co-producing these videos and documents with an organization called Builders for Tomorrow. So she starts looking into who is Builders for Tomorrow. And as it turns out, this is an organization that does not exist really at all. So they purport themselves to be a venture philanthropy and research organization focused on combating anti-Jewish and anti-West ideologies. Again, anti-Semitism is not anti-Zionism, assholes. Stop doing that. It is led by industry leaders from the tech.
Palestinians are Semitic, so good luck with that.
Correct.
You know,
but it claims to be led by industry leaders from the tech community who've built some of the most consequential technology companies. Who are they? As a venture philanthropy platform, BFT provides grants to whom and how much, and accelerates the most promising teams and ideas. Where? In terms of research, BFT leverages cutting-edge advances in generative AI. And large language models, LLMs, to address pressing global challenges. Sure. The group conducts research across 3 core areas: combating misinformation online, sounds like the censorship industrial complex to me reinvented; identifying bad actors engaged in criminal activities. Don't we have like online cops for that, and police and FBI and other agencies to handle that through the government? And helping to scale the most promising emerging news and social media accounts that shape public discourse. So basically, they're providing spam and bot support to the most promising emerging news and social media accounts. They're artificially inflating propaganda.
I smell Unit 8200.
Oh, very much. You might be right. So let's read what Gen X Girl learns. Who is Builders for Tomorrow? The ADL and BFT co-produced reports claiming that AI and Wikipedia are biased against Israel, urging Congress to censor. Of course they do. So she described what the non-existent BFT is described as, but here's the thing. They're virtually non-existent as an organization, aside from the references in the ADL reports, which state that the reports were co-produced with BFT, and provides a summary at the bottom about BFT, which we read. It's about who they are and what they are. We read that whole thing. She says, this is highly alarming, given ADL's push for Congress to use these reports to censor and tailor data regarding Israel for AI training and large language models, and regulate or censor Wikipedia for anti-Israel bias. They argue that AI is trained in large part using Wikipedia and claim that Wikipedia is infiltrated by pro-Hamas editors that create anti-Israel narratives. You mean at the CIA? Because that's who really edits Wikipedia the most, we've learned. ADL's attack on Wikipedia is a retaliation for Wikipedia designating ADL as an unreliable source in 2024. Even Wikipedia knows it. ADL is, in fact, an unreliable source. The Jewish Currents audited ADL's 2023 anti-Semitism report and determined that 44% of the report was not anti-Semitism because it was just anything that mentioned the word Palestine or that was a protest on behalf of stopping Israel from bombing civilians.
Right.
And they concluded that the ADL is an unreliable source because it is beholden to pro-Israel advocacy. Absolutely. Now it appears that the ADL is attempting to retaliate by censoring its critics through congressional legislation in order to force Wikipedia back under pro-Israel control. To create a sense of crisis, as the ADL often does, they partnered with tech leaders via BFT to make the argument that Wikipedia is an epidemic problem because it's training AI. So, who are the people behind BFT? Who are they affiliated with? What are their foreign ties, given their focus on anti-Israel bias? No one knows. After extensive searches using various search engines, Safari, Kaji, Yandex, as well as DeepSeek, Instagram's AI, and Twitter's Grok, see the second post for Grok's analysis, no information exists. They don't exist. They're a myth. They're a wraith. They exist on paper only by the ADL. There's nothing about BFT. They don't have a website. They don't have an address. They don't have a phone number. There's nothing about its funding. There's nothing about individuals or entities affiliated with this organization. There's no state registration information. The closest she found is in 1962, a not-for-profit organization was registered in New York called Builders for Tomorrow, Inc. They're listed as active, but the file, of course, doesn't have any names or addresses for the entity. What a surprise. It could literally just be some Zionist in New York that bought it and has been paying to keep it alive since the 1960s, literally. She says it's important that we find out who's behind BFT because we can't rely on Congress to investigate. They'll simply take the legislation handed to them along with the talking points developed by the ADL and push for censorship. She's absolutely right.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.
No, it's not. It's Israel. Every time, it's Israel. It's very simple. It's not a mystery at all. All right? So here's the Grok summary. And again, I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in Grok. Very funny. That rhymes. But I find that garbage in, garbage out. And they look at a lot of garbage as well as a platform. And they are taking in a lot of not necessarily true information and measuring that with what might be true information and coming up with somewhere in between. And that's what Grok is. And that's what all of AI is. All right. According to this, it says at the end, it gives all the available information is limited with the primary source being the description from the ADL. Despite extensive searches across web sources, social media platforms, and other public records, no additional definitive details about their leadership, specific affiliated individuals, or operational entities have surfaced. Right? So
I can't tell you that. It's classified.
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. That's right. So again, no reputable sources beyond the ADL description provide specific information about BFT's founders, board members, or operational structure. The organization does not appear to have a public website or official social media presence based on current data, which is exactly what you would expect from an organization that monitors social media and tries to find people, having negative activity that might affect Israel. How the fuck do they do that if they don't even exist as an organization on social media? All right. Posts on Twitter mentioning Builders for Tomorrow. What's up with that? All right. The ADL is the only related organization, is a well-known organization focused on combating anti-Semitism and hate. That's not exactly true either. However, their mention of BFT does not include links to additional resources or a BFT website. Very much in the right-wing newsosphere that I've been calling out recently, and I found another person who calls himself World Independent News that very similarly doesn't have a website and basically just has a Twitter handle and never puts a link to anything that he references ever. No receipts. Guy's got 65,000 Twitter followers. Given BFT's tech leadership and focus on AI, it's possible that leaders from major tech firms could be involved, but no evidence confirms this. The ADL's description suggests a high-profile group, yet their low public profile is unusual for such an organization. Yeah, I would say that it's unusual. I also suspect one of the very prominent, popular, very well-known billionaires, potentially, who are very outspoken on behalf of Israel, maybe somebody with the last name of Ackman, to be behind something like this. Okay? Or even...
Shit, throw a rock at the billionaires.
Even
you'll find one.
Alex Karp could be one of them, potentially, Palantir. He's very mysterious. He knows how to play stuff, but the fact that there's no organization registered anywhere in any state or anywhere other than this 1962 obscure thing in New York, red flag upon red flag upon red flag. So I'm excited to talk to Gen X Girl about this even further. Love her. She's doing great work at Gen X Girl 1994 over on the Twitters. If you have not already followed her there, please do so. She, again, is doing great work, and she's growing her presence. And again, we've already done 2 one-on-ones, INN one-on-ones, so by all means, check that out. And we're going to record another one. That'll probably be out this Saturday is my plan to put it out. So, all right. That was our Fuck Israel segment for the night. We do one of those like every week. We kind of have to. And
it's a short one.
Yeah, I told you tonight might be a little bit of a shorter show, although we do have a couple of other stories to get to tonight. Before we do, let me ask one more time to support independent media if you can. We are solely user funded. We do not take sponsor money. We do not do ad reads. We do not have promo codes. We have you, and we have these incredible people that have supported our network. A lot of them are in chat right now, hanging out, and they support the media they want to see. Sean the Accord Lord, for example. Why not just send them over the Iraq lobster clip and over? Very funny. Very funny. Golden Monarch, friend of the show.
There.
Yes, it is. Golden Monarch, friend of the show. He also has a Substack, Golden Monarch, a domain.substack.com. Go check that out over there. And yeah, it's unbelievable that they get away with all this stuff in the UK. It's all colluded. Yep. But now I'm starting to really question whether the Assange stuff, now that I'm seeing how similar in vein it is to what they're doing, what Israel is doing to the protesters and journalists now, were they the ones that were actually behind this entire thing the entire time with Assange because he was pro-Palestine? And while it was the U.S. that was directing it, was it Israel directing the U.S. to direct that? It seems that because of the way the tactics that are being used, it seems to be orchestrated out of Tel Aviv. Maybe I'm wrong. And I think that's why we made a deal to let...
He's got a point.
I think that's why we made a deal to get Julian out when we did, the U.S. government. I know they did not want to fly him here, and they did not want to have a public trial that would have put the entire journalistic thing on trial, on top of the fact that they didn't want to even acknowledge his First Amendment rights. That sounds very similar, again, to what they're doing to the Venezuelan migrants that are here, that they don't want to acknowledge their First Amendment rights. Okay?
Yeah.
Interesting thought, interesting question. And as I was seeing that and just reading it now and watching those videos, I'm like, we see a pattern here, and it's not all coming out of the U.S. and it's not all coming out of CIA. Remember, there's very little continuity in CIA, in a lot of our intel agencies, especially at the top. You've got the deep state, but the decision-making that happens at the top, we've had turnover. You know who hasn't? Israel. Now they have. Now they've started to turn over because it was unpopular. But you had Gallant and Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and Netanyahu in power for quite a while. All right. So could it have been that since 2019?
Hey.
What?
Go ahead, continue.
Sorry.
Continue.
Somebody yelled, hey. Somebody yelled, hey.
I was going to talk to Substack for a bit, but continue.
That since 2019.
Finish your thought.
Since 2019, those four have been the power source in Israel that also had a tremendous effect over our intel community. Go to your thought on Substack.
Coming to a
I was just going to tell the people
Substack newsletter
that are watching us over on Substack and not following Rachel Maddow, although I'm sure she'll be here any day now. But that you should come subscribe to the YouTube. It is a place that exists. It is heavily suppressed. You're welcome to go on there as well. Just give us a subscribe. You're welcome to continue watching on Substack, but
there are 20 people
YouTube
watching on
numbers
YouTube
also
with
good.
chats.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yay.
Very funny stuff. All right, so we have not talked about Luigi Mangione in a long time. And now I just made the algorithm go crazy. Either that or we're about to be totally suppressed. I don't know. But there's been some Luigi news. Now, before I, go to that story, let's get back to, now I talked to Rob Durden about Luigi, 6 weeks ago or so on my one-on-one with him, INN co-founder Robert Durden. If you haven't seen him or watched that, go watch it. It was great. He's a doctor, and it was interesting to hear a doctor's perspective who's dealt with insurance, who's had to deal with, he's a chiropractor, all kinds of stuff. And he's also been very focused on Luigi and healthcare for years. He was a very big proponent of universal healthcare. So we've been saying from day one, for those who have not been watching, that it's a psyop. I don't believe, thank you, I don't believe that Luigi Mangione actually did the shooting. I think that he's been moved around a chessboard by a bunch of people, that the story has been used and exploited by many, and that they have butchered and botched so much of this story, which does not add up and does not compute. And now we're finding about how they have butchered the process in how they handled his arrest and everything subsequently, that this is absolutely going to be dismissed or set as a mistrial at some point. It's set up to be that. So what we have been seeing is not very much in the news media, but what you will notice is that once in a while, when they need to distract from a narrative, usually Israel murdering a bunch of children, they'll throw out a little Luigi red meat. All right. Because he sways a narrative and he gets a lot of people talking. The people on the right are still very upset that vigilante justice could happen. Everybody on the left has made this guy into a hero. And I wouldn't even say the Democrats have not turned him into a Democrats ain't left. The left has certainly turned him into a hero, although taking the law into your own hands is never good. Murdering another private citizen, never good. That guy, I understand. Except that.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bah, bah.
Sure. But he only, first of all, you had a gun that jammed. All right. You had him getting on the city bike.
Well,
all right. And then riding up to Central Park, the weird thing there, and then disappearing, but he didn't really disappear. There are so many inconsistencies in this story and how they mishandled. And then there's the perp walk where they treated him like Superman with the fucking legion of cops where they're transferring him between prisons.
Fucking ridiculous.
That was insane. Okay. Where there's just all of these little weird things. They tried to send him to Rikers Island, and I think that might be where he still is at this point. I don't even know. Then they put him in a cell with Diddy, I think, for a while, or Sam Bankman-Fried. He had a high-profile lawyer, and he shows up.
Jelly.
And he showed up to court the very first time, literally wearing the same outfit that Oswald wore when they walked him out. And he famously was shot. It was weird. The red sweater with the collar and everything. It was very creepy. All right. So I've had a lot of questions over this entire thing. And I feel like, and I talked about this, somebody, and I won't mention who, but somebody got this right. Almost. More than just about anyone. And didn't even realize it. When they mentioned a scenario between Luigi's family, now Luigi's family, we know, owns nursing homes, right? But they don't just own nursing homes. They also have gotten into home health care for seniors, which is a massive business.
Okay.
And apparently United Healthcare was negotiating or against, and they were bidding against another company for Luigi's family's company. There was a bidding war for their company, and it would certainly have helped that other company to have the CEO of United Healthcare taken out, to have their stock price drop by 25 or 30%, which ended up happening. A lot of things ended up happening that worked out pretty well for an organization, and I've mentioned them before. They're called the Carlyle Group, and one of the members used to be the Director of National Intelligence. Huh. You think he might have connections to be able to put something together like this? Yeah. So I have been a little quiet about that. I have been kind of waiting for the trial to happen and for something to happen. But now I start seeing a couple of drips and drabs happening throughout the media that I decided to bring something tonight and do a little Luigi story. So we got 4 things that I wanted to bring. First of them is really bad. This immediately should mean that the case is dismissed. Breaking news. Luigi Mangione's lawyer, Karen Agnifilio, stated yesterday, sorry if I butcher her name, but she stated yesterday, quote, "We were just informed by the state court prosecutors that they were eavesdropping on all of Mr. Mangione's calls. They were listening to his attorney calls and his other calls that are going on." Wait, what? Here's Luigi. There you go, brother.
Look at how they massacred my boy.
Like, wait. So that alone, you know, you've got attorney-client privilege as... Go ahead.
Were the calls coming from inside the house?
They might have been.
This is important things we need to know.
This is at the Luigi Case Files on Twitter. The Luigi Case. Independent account raising awareness. Now, again, how accurate are they? I don't know. But here's another one. And this was from, I think it was Thursday, 7:23 p.m. Latest motion states that patrolwoman who searched Luigi's backpack at McDonald's without a warrant, then she repacked the items and left the restaurant with the backpack, then had no body cam footage for the next 11 minutes during her drive to the precinct. Upon arriving at the precinct, she resumed the warrantless search and, quote, found a handgun in the front compartment, allegedly within a minute.
Oh, God.
Do we smell something rotten?
Don't fit. One must acquit.
Wait, where's Reef? Hold on. I made you disappear again.
I'm here. Hello.
There he is.
Why?
No, I made you disappear. I don't know.
Why you do this?
Because I messed up Stream Deck buttons, apparently. There he is. Hi, everybody. That's Reef. I'm Indy, for those who don't know. Emmanuel Goldstein, good to see you, man, over on Substack. These are all our good friends out there coming out and hanging and watching the show. So excited that we got to stream to Substack today. All right. So you've got Luigi. Number one, his calls are being listened in on. His privileged attorney-client calls are being listened in on. And now you've got the arresting officer mishandling his backpack, allegedly his backpack, without a warrant, then finding a gun after riding 11 minutes in her car without the body cam on. Sure. Okay.
Police, freeze!
Now, again, somebody went into the filing and looked in more detail and pulled off that patrolwoman Wasser left McDonald's at 10:04 p.m. There is no body-worn camera footage from her for the next 11 minutes as she drives to the precinct with the backpack. That's not suspicious at all. At 10:16 a.m., 1 minute after arriving at the precinct, She continued her warrantless search of the backpack. She then first reopened the same backpack compartment that she had started searching at McDonald's before immediately closing it and opening the front compartment of the backpack as if she was specifically looking for something, and instantly she found a handgun in the front compartment. Amazing.
Can you say backpack?
Amazing. Ugh. So then, let's also not forget that this has become a lightning rod of a political thing where now the Attorney General of the United States has decided to get involved. She wants the death penalty. Yep. You've got to be shitting me.
Fucking wild.
Attorney General Pam Bondi has reportedly directed federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty for Luigi Mangione if he's convicted of killing Brian Thompson later on when his trial happens, if it ever comes to fruition. They want to throw this kid.
Are you kidding me?
No, that is literally how I feel about this. What evidence do they have that it was him? That's a great question. Nobody wants to answer that question. All right. But what they want is to make an example out of this kid because they work for the ruling class. Don't forget. They want to make an example out of him because it scared the shit out of them that somebody could literally show up on Fifth Avenue in broad daylight and take out a CEO with nobody having any idea who it was and getting away scot-free. And the person who actually did it is going to get away scot-free, by the way. Likely did it on behalf of the Carlyle group.
You let one ant stand up to us, then
allegedly.
They all might stand up.
I am speculating that it is likely the hitman was likely hired by the Carlyle group to take out the CEO of a rival company for multiple reasons, financially.
Objection. Speculation.
It's absolutely speculation. I'm admitting speculation. It's not a trial. Not yet, at least.
Sir, come to the bench. I'll ask you to come to the bench.
So why is Pam Bondi seeking the death penalty for, again, that's if he's convicted by a jury of his peers, which we know that he never will be, and they all know that he never will be. So what is this being done to do? Why are they doing this? Because they want to get their right-wing base all fired up and stoked up about potentially murdering this vigilante. And seeing a vigilante being brought to justice.
Why?
Why? Because remember, they're also copsuckers. So they back the blue, they love the blue, and heaven forbid somebody took the law into
rarest form of chupacabra.
And God forbid somebody took the law into their own hands. Yes, if they took the law into their own hands and got away with it, well, that would be really bad, wouldn't it? I mean, to some, yes. To off the CEO of an insurance company that was denying the highest rate of claims in the industry that we now find was potentially now trying to buy out this guy's family business, which meant that they were all going to get over $100 million, by the way. So tell me what the incentive was exactly for him to ice this guy. He had a family member and something about insurance, and I know he had a thing with his back, and there's all kinds of stories and rumors about his past, about the way he spent 2024. As it turns out, he worked in the automotive industry. He worked for a digital company called Cars Direct. I know some people actually personally from my previous life that worked at Cars Direct. It's kind of funny that that's where that was the company that he worked for. And he was living in Hawaii. Then there were stories about him being in San Francisco during Q3 or Q4 of last year. And then his mother filed a missing persons report in November in San Francisco. Again, a lot of questions and weird timelines that don't add up when it comes to this kid. All right.
I say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
Maybe. So that is our take on Luigi and what's going on right now. And certainly you're not going to see us monetized by YouTube. By the way, we are demonetized by YouTube. That happened just after October 7th when we published a video that had a title that was a little bit too friendly to an organization that sounds a lot like hummus. And it was just the title of a video, but it was enough for them to give our channel a strike, say that we were supporting terrorism, and demonetize us. And here we are 20 months later, still demonetized. But these incredible people have still supported our organization and have supported our efforts here to support independent media. We do that by Cash App, $, Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, that's INDIE, and INN Newsletter or IndieMediaToday.com. Either one of those over at the Substack. You can subscribe free, support for just a monthly or annual subscription there. That's pretty cool. So that would be nice. Thank you. Really appreciate that. So I got one other thing. Hey, did you hear that we're bombing Yemen?
I do believe so.
I had because I pay attention, but I think a lot of people are not aware that the United States has been bombing Yemen. And not only that, but we made back a ground invasion? That I definitely had not heard. So I got this out of Indie Media Award honoree Left Voice. And they do pretty good work most of the time. Subscribe to them, support independent media. The United States is bombing Yemen and made back a ground invasion. They've already killed hundreds of civilians, and it's imperialist bombing of Yemen, okay? We know that. Now the Trump admin is indicating it made back a ground invasion, threatening to throw the country into civil war. Because who does that benefit?
War.
Who does that benefit? So on April 25th, sure.
Halliburton,
Israel,
Elbit, Boeing, Israel, survey says
all the above. On April 25th, U.S. airstrikes targeted a migrant center in Sada, killing 68 migrants and wounding nearly 50 others, which is awful and a war crime. We are not at war, and we are deliberately murdering civilians. That's a problem. That's a crime. These airstrikes against Yemen have been intensifying since mid-March, following the launch of Operation Rough Rider by the Trump administration, which aims to secure maritime trade in the strategic Red Sea area connecting the Suez Canal and international supply chains, which is really on behalf of Eilat and Israel, because very little of our sea traffic goes through the Suez Canal and the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. They are doing this to protect Israeli ships, which Ansar Allah has been bombing any ships that are headed for Israeli territory. All right. And why are they doing that? They're doing that because Israel is bombing Gaza, and Israel has not stopped bombing Gaza and is murdering Palestinians and also bombing and taking over the West Bank too. They are just stealing land and murdering people. The increase in civilian casualties reflects the violence of the strikes, while the U.S. Central Command threatens to intensify pressure until the objective is achieved, which remains the restoration of freedom and navigation and American deterrence in the region, as reported, of course, by the right-wing capitalist douchebag Wall Street Journal. All right. That's also, I believe, does Rupert Murdoch own that yet? I thought he bought that. I could be wrong. According to the Yemen Data Project, an independent organization, the U.S. Operation Rough Rider has caused 500 civilian casualties, including 158 deaths, 342 wounded as of April 22nd. And now it continues to rise. In addition to the migrant center on the night of April 27th, new U.S. strikes left another 8 dead, including women and children, okay, in the Takban area on the outskirts of Sana'a, not to mention the victims in Amran. Like, again, who's suing somebody for murdering women and children, innocent civilians? Somebody needs to bring these people up on charges.
What's crazy, I saw one of these bombings, I don't know if it was this one in particular or another one in Yemen, where a Twitter post had posted like location of a supposed like terrorist site, which was like a quarry, you know?
Right.
And like, apparently that's what they used to target it, was a Twitter post, which is just the fuck.
Here's your sign.
Right?
Anyway.
The military escalation in Yemen is part of a deeper dynamic of U.S. pressure against Iran. The recent strikes come precisely as the Iranian nuclear issue is at the heart of negotiations. With the reactionary Iranian regime weakened after the fall of al-Assad's dictatorship in Syria and the retreat of Hezbollah in Lebanon, the U.S. is targeting one of the Islamic Republic's last allies to put pressure on Khamenei. That's their leader. Again, being done at the behest of Israel. And I don't know if they get to that. We're going to see in a minute. As the U.S. bombards the country, Saudi Arabia and the U.S. and United Arab Emirates are reportedly preparing a military offensive led by loyalist Yemeni groups aimed at pushing back the Houthis and shifting the balance of power as the truce in place since April of 2022 remains fragile. That's a nice way to say it. All right. The ultra-reactionary Saudi monarchy fears that the instability caused by the rebels will threaten its oil infrastructure and harm its daunting Vision 2030 economic diversification project. Well, but
gotta diversify your bonds.
These are the poor. This is one of the poorest nations on the planet. It's unbelievable. All right. This Saudi-led military offensive has been explicitly supported by the U.S. According to, again, the capitalist douchebag Wall Street Journal, U.S. officials claim that Yemeni pro-government militias are planning a ground offensive against the Houthis in an attempt to take advantage of a U.S. bombing campaign that's degraded the militant group's capabilities. They're pushing for civil war because they want to put puppet leadership in that's friendly to the United States versus Ansar Allah that's bombing any ship that goes through that's trying to get to Eilat. And they're also, by the way, taking out U.S. Reaper drones. We're going to talk about that in a minute. All right. U.S. officials confirm that Yemeni pro-government militias, like I said, are planning the offensive. Right. They add that the U.S. is willing to support a ground operation led by local forces. That sounds like Afghanistan, while denying its involvement in the ongoing
exactly
preparations.
What it sounds like.
This would involve strengthening the capabilities of local factions loyal to the internationally recognized governments, aka funneling money and weapons to local separatist groups, including private militias supported by the U.S. until they decide to turn on us or we call them terrorists and attack them, so that they can assume responsibility for security of the territory, aka the U.S. and Israel take over, just like they're doing in southern Lebanon and in Syria. If you clowns don't see that that's what's going to happen to you, well, that's what's going to happen to you. This U.S. offensive is part of a long history of imperialist interventions in Yemen. Going back in 2015, a coalition led by Saudi Arabia and the UAE, supported by the U.S., France, and UK, intervened militarily to restore Hadi's government, triggering a civil war with catastrophic humanitarian consequences, much to the benefit of Saudi Arabia, by the way. The current relentless persecution, relentless persecution of the Houthis cannot be separated from the genocidal war waged by Israel in Gaza, which is also supported by all the imperialist powers. And it's also the reason why the Houthis have been going after the ships in the Strait. Behind both conflicts lies the goal of imperialist control of the Middle East, its resources, and its strategic trade routes. Yes, Ben Gurion Canal as well. Faced with this imperialist offensive of unprecedented violence, which has already caused hundreds of civilian victims and threatens to plunge Yemen back into the horror of a civil war, while they're probably going to get blockaded against and starved in addition, the mobilization of the popular classes and workers of the region, independently of the reactionary leaderships of the so-called axis of resistance, constitutes the only way to bring a progressive solution to the situation, to drive out U.S. imperialism and its allies, and to put an end to the genocide in Gaza. They are asking for another group to emerge, a third party that's not Ansar Allah and that's not already rebel aligned and backed by Saudi and UAE and the US. I don't know who they're expecting to do that or where they're expecting that to come from. It's a nice thought.
Well, I'm with you.
So not only that, so Empire of Lies, we apparently lost an F-18 Super Hornet that because of there was some fire on an aircraft carrier, and that's not good. That's not where an F-18 belongs, as far as I know. I believe it sunk. So Empire of Lies taunts and says underneath Pistol Pete, "Hey Pistol Pete, did you lose something? What happened to your $60 million Super Hornet? And you clowns want to take on Iran when you can't even handle Yemen? Yeah, that's probably not such a good idea to start threatening Iran. Probably not. Maybe, but I wouldn't." And then my favorite tweet, and this happened about a week and a half ago.
Up in the sky. Look, it's a plane.
All right.
Not there anymore.
No. Desert Mantis putting up a quote from Rifat Al-Arir. "There's a Palestine that dwells inside all of us, a Palestine that needs to be rescued, a free Palestine." Yes. Caitlin Johnstone published on about 2 weeks ago, "The most wholesome thing on the internet right now is Yemeni forces keep a running tally of the U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drones they've been destroying. Those things are $30 million a piece, and they've already gotten 21 of them. That adds up to $630 million for those who don't do math well."
Like me.
That in addition to the $60 million plane. So tell me why we're losing all of these weapons and
moisturized
planes for moisture. Oh yeah. The tweet was brilliant. I forgot about that. "Unbothered, moisturized, happy, in my lane, focused, flourishing. Just where an F-18 Super Hornet belongs, at the bottom of the ocean."
Yep.
Well, you're certainly not going to see us monetized by YouTube for championing fighting back against the imperialist powers for Yemen. We would never advocate for anyone that they claim to be terrorists, because that would be bad and that would be illegal. But hey, if they want to, again, when they're occupied, resistance is justified, and they're supporting resistance. So if you're able to support monetarily, if not, please share the show. Let other people know about it. If you're able to, Cash App, $ Indie News Network, co-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, and INNnewsletter.com. Try through.
Money, please.
It helps. It certainly does. Let me take a drink, and that'll help too.
You gotta be
coffee.
moisturized, bro.
Coffee. Yeah, it's in my lane. Focused.
Yes, with the dehydrating coffee. Yeah, hydrated.
Coffee.
Remember to hydrate, boys and girls.
All right, so now we're gonna get to the lightning round. We're at 11:30. Good. This is good timing, so we can be done about just before 12 and switch over to boats at midnight. Over on the Ocho. If you're not subscribed yet, youtube.com/INN8 The Ocho, rumble.com/C/INN8 The Ocho. It's a separate channel that we have just for our React show, as well as pro wrestling talk. And when Angel does baseball and sports shows, we'll do that over there. It's the lighter side of INN. So,
You fool! I have 70 alternative accounts!
Just two, man. Stop. No, what do you do? Oh, I do have a lot. So, lightning round. These are stories that I'm going to get to a little quicker, although this one is not so quick. I did a story Monday night about where I wrote one about housing in South Florida and how many $1 million houses plus there were available on the market. Well, I did a little further research, and I did a little bit further search about this to kind of see as a follow-up. And I find this guy, Nick Gurley. Now, Nick Gurley has a website. So this is a little bit biased. He's got a site called Reventure. And he'll explain what Reventure does in a minute. He says, I don't think that people understand what's happening in housing right now in Florida, which has 177,000 listings, which is the highest level on record. More listings ever in the state of Florida than ever. The entire Northeast U.S. has 79,000 listings, which is the lowest level on record. That's a statistic I did not know. People are leaving Florida and moving back north. A structural trend that will likely last years and cause Florida's housing market to decline for an extended period. So go ahead.
Did he miss a zero in there?
He did. But that's okay.
He must have.
We got it.
Okay.
He might have had to do that for.
Yeah.
And again, this is an analysis from his consulting company. So there may be some bias in there, but he's pulling out the housing supply, right, for these states. And assuming that he's correct. Right. And I didn't do his math, but that is a graph. That's a substantial graph to show again that they're back in 2018 or so, there were 155,000 houses for sale in Florida. This is 20% more than that. All right. Now, what he says is that the entire housing market got this wrong. Builders, investors, and second and third home buyers flocked to Florida during pandemic thinking it was a stable place to invest and safe. Where they actually should have been buying and building was in the Northeast. Now, Florida's housing market is in a housing downturn. Prices are dropping across the state and will likely continue to drop for years due to an oversupply of housing combined with a record lack of affordability. That was what I had talked about, was the glut on how expensive the houses were. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, home prices in the Northeast are going up and continue to go up due to a shortage of housing. For example, in New York, values are up almost 6% over the last year. Meanwhile, Florida's down 2.4%. Wow.
The rent is too damn high.
But this is just the start of declines in Florida, according to Nick. And this is his prediction, because inventory growth is showing no signs of slowing, and the structural reversal in migration will take years to normalize. And he references, all right, that Florida's migration levels are down 80% from their pandemic peak when people were moving to Florida. In 2024, the state registered 64,000 net domestic migration, which was fifth worst level on record, by the way, last year. Look at where it was 3 years prior, right? It was over 250,000. All right, he says the last time something like this happened, it was the 2008 housing bust, and Florida went through a 5-year period of reduced migration. I have a buddy that bought his house during that period in Port St. Lucie, and 10 years later still sold it for a loss. All right, he says, I think this is just a big part of the story that people don't understand yet about Florida's housing market. Everyone is blaming HOA fees, hurricanes, and insurance, and many think it's just a blip that will soon subside. But the true reality could be that Florida is now entering the down cycle of inbound migration, and that down cycle is going to last for years. So don't buy in Florida right now because the prices are going to keep going down, is what he's saying, because the data on his app shows that local home buyers in Florida now need to pay 39% of their gross income on the mortgage and tax costs for buying a house, which is the highest level since 2006-07. Remember where I talked about that you need to have 25 to 30% of your income to get approved for a mortgage? Now they're allowing up to 40% because they can't get approved at 25 to 30. But what ends up happening, he says the highest level since the 2006-07 number, that 39%, that bubble happened when they were allowing mortgages to go out for people that couldn't really afford them, because it would be 40% of their gross income, not even net. 39% of their gross income was going to housing. All right, and way above the long-term average of
an average.
Well, but that's 39% versus the long-term average of 27.
Yeah.
All right. So about a third, like I said, about a third of your income, 25 to 30% of your income. That's right in the range. All right. So that's indicating right now that they're accepting mortgages from people that can't really afford it, which is going to see a super high default rate down the road, which is going to see an even further crash of the market. So if the local buyers are priced out and the migration train is slowed, who's going to support the Florida housing market? The answer, nobody.
Israel.
Who are these people?
That's what I'm asking. Who are these people? No one. That I asked that in my article. Who's buying all these $1 million houses? The answer is nobody. Which is why inventory's through the roof and prices are dropping fast. Not a surprise. Golden Monarch, Florida has fake money. Very funny. Well, some of it's fake money, sure. Reventure is forecasting prices to drop in Florida by about 5% over the next 12 months. Our price forecast score for the state is a 35. Meanwhile, New York is a 55, which equates to a 4.3% increase in housing prices. All right, so very interesting stuff.
Free real estate.
He's doing it to promote his reventure.app, service. And I just mentioned that there were over 2,000 homes for sale of $1 million or more. Who can afford these? I published this last week. Okay, just to kind of pile on to Nick's article. So I thought that was really interesting and a good follow-up to what we had talked about with South Florida housing. I don't know what you're seeing in Northern Florida, Reef, about housing and stuff going on the market. Are you seeing a lot of like for sale signs in your neighborhood and stuff lately?
I mean, not here specifically, but there was definitely a big boom with like housing communities not too far from me that we tried to get into that like wasn't, the numbers just didn't math. The math didn't math, Like you could make all these houses, no one was going to pay them. So,
right.
So what's the point of that?
So that's the first one. Now, it kind of in the similar vein to why aren't things affordable anymore? All right. Let me walk you through how this goes. All right. Now, this has to do with tariffs and Trump. Companies won't itemize their bills to show the tariff amounts and will simply raise their prices. This means Trump can keep pretending and telling you that he's not taxing you. It's just pesky Bidenflation. Number 2, Trump cuts deals with some of his favorite billionaires so they don't pay import taxes. They do, though, keep those prices high, of course. You don't know about it because your bill isn't itemized. Meanwhile, mom and pop shops fold because they can't keep up. Sounds like pandemic. Meanwhile, also, you're paying taxes at both ends, both getting taxed when you make purchases, right, and paying your federal taxes. However, Trump keeps telling you that these tariff taxes, which you're not supposed to admit you're actually paying, are how he's going to someday get rid of your federal taxes. There's no plan for Trump to get rid of your federal taxes. He has absolutely no intention of doing it. And of course, meanwhile, Trump rearranges the budget so he can get more tax breaks and have more money and takes the crypto cops off the street so he can steal crypto money from all his followers. He does this by taking your benefits. You're left waiting for Trump to do the nice thing he says he's going to do for you, which he never does. Bezos gets richer, Trump gets richer, Elon gets richer. You're getting poorer with a red hat on your head because you still haven't figured it out. And we did a segment Monday night called Fell for It Again, and I would definitely put a Fell for It Again on that. Anyone that still thinks he's going to deliver, fell for it again. Next, we covered about 5-6 weeks. Well, don't do that, please.
Thank you very much. That's really nice. Thank you.
No.
He is a sick puppy.
Yes, I truly believe he is a sick puppy. So, Arturo Dominguez, another great independent journalist, decolonized journalism over on Substack. A 6th person has died in ICE custody this year alone. This time it's a Haitian woman in the Chrome Detention Center in Miami. We covered a video that we saw from the Chrome Detention Center where they were stacked like 25 in a cell that was built for 5. And Arturo says he's reported on that facility among many others several times. Recently, it was after videos surfaced of migrants begging for someone to help them due to horrific conditions inside. Chrome has a capacity of 500, and last Arturo checked, there were nearly 1,800 migrants crammed into the privately owned detention center. I believe it's a Core Civic owned detention center.
They literally put up an SOS.
Yep. Well, no, that was at CCOT. That was outside CCOT, I believe. Or was that?
Okay.
All right.
The same difference.
I also wanted to note that we've talked about Cop City in the past in Atlanta, RIP to Tortuguita, but he's mentioned here, Cop City is officially opening today. That was earlier this week, made possible only through extreme state violence, including the murder of Tortuguita, clear-cutting of forest land, and mass criminalization of protesters, as well as spending $150 million on a project that was originally supposed to cost $30. And over 100,000 signatures in protests throughout the city that were completely dismissed by the city council. But the fight goes on, and support for those facing charges is still critical. And there are 83 plus cop cities being built and in some process of being built overnight throughout the country. In 49 U.S. states, I believe it is. All right. Oh, here you go. You sent me something about Cop City.
Cop City. Bam,
Lamb. This
is like the first thing they did.
So exciting that it opened at enormous cost, both in public dollars and human and animal lives, so they can pilot cutting-edge new techniques like running over people with horses at protests. Wait, what?
I wish we were kidding.
Suey! Is that how you call pigs?
Like
that. Unreal. Safety first.
Yeah.
Held that to Tortuguita.
Safety first.
Fuckers.
Jesus Christ.
We live in a dystopian hell, folks. Now, the last thing I wanted to bring,
girls, but more violent.
But I don't think that the horse girls want the horses to have cops sitting on them and
no, of course not.
Stomping and
they just got a fun little hobby.
Protesters. Now, we have talked a lot on this show for years about the Teamsters, about UPS. We talked about the strike that never happened in the summer of 2023. We were doing a show then. Yeah, we started in 2021. So we were doing a show then. We had first talked early on about how the Teamsters were trying to take over Amazon, how the UAW messed with John Deere workers and sold out, signed a sellout contract. And then UPS did the same thing with the Teamsters. Teamsters did the same thing with UPS workers, drivers, and warehouse workers in summer of 2023. They rammed through a mass... That's his union sound, I guess. But in that summer...
Fucking lollipop kill, bro.
They had practiced striking all month of July and then stopped, and UPS had left the negotiating table, decided to come back with 5 days left before the strike was supposed to start, and on day one, Sean O'Brien and Teamsters caved. It smelled very fishy in the end. In hindsight, it seemed like they had already hammered out a deal in principle somewhere behind the scenes that also involved the UPS pilots. I covered this again extensively then. And one of the criticisms that we had at that point was that it did not protect against automation and did not guarantee a certain number of workers and facilities would be open and continue to be staffed by Teamsters. Yep. Well, what we've seen since is the cutting of facilities. We've seen the cutting of 2 facilities last summer, and we covered that. So in, again, August of 2023, we did a 90-minute segment. It's one of the longest segments I ever did on How Do We Miss That? Talking about the UPS and how badly most of even progressive independent media got it wrong because they were all desperate to report on a win.
Yep.
And a win for workers. And it wasn't a win for workers. It was a ramrod. It was a railroading of workers. And they pushed this thing through and they propagandized the country about what the workers got. The biggest thing was that they kept telling people that the drivers would earn $175,000 a year. That's not true. I mean, a very small number did, but the propaganda went out that this is what they got out of it. They didn't even get the $25 an hour that they were fighting for the part-timers. All right. They only got 7,500 part-timers converted to full-time out of 180,000 part-time workers. When allegedly UPS had the business to do, they were doing massive stock buybacks and they were massively profitable. They could well afford to have paid these people and brought them on staff and had the work for it. Now what we have, and then once that happened, I said Teamsters sold out when they caved on the master agreement, railroaded it through. Most were clueless then. All right. And that was when I was on a show called Nobody Wants to Work Anymore that I did with Snow Himbo. And I railed about that for about a half an hour. I took some segments on it and I was going to play them here. I said, you know what? It's not even worth it. Then in 2024, we covered on this show when UPS announced they were closing facilities in Portland and Baltimore and eliminating 1,300 Teamster jobs. So we already knew. It sounds like Reef is dying over there. Good job. So we already knew that they were starting to cut. And shout out to Tom Hall, World Socialist website, who reported then that there was a plan to close a large percentage of their 200 facilities nationwide and get rid of as much as 80% of their workforce. This was already in the works. The first thing that I wanted to note is that there were a couple of people that were claiming that it was because of the tariffs that accelerated this. And that may or may not be the case, but this was already on the books well before Trump was ever elected. This was in the process. Not only that, but UPS also was losing business to Amazon. Amazon decided to have their own fleet and to outsource less and less of their shipping business to UPS over time, which meant that UPS wouldn't need as many full-timers. All right. That was also announced last year. So when I saw this headline, it upset me, but it didn't surprise me. Mayday, mayday. Are the Trump tariffs killing 20,000 UPS jobs? Now, this is out of an Indie Media Award honoree, Sheer Post. Les Leopold, I don't know, but he wrote it. He wrote this on his Substack, right? And this has apparently made its way around to where people are getting it wrong because it wasn't due to the tariffs that they did this. They're using the tariffs as an excuse to accelerate this timeline. Yeah, but they were already planning to do this. All right. UPS, like every major corporation, is in business to extract as much wealth as possible and shovel it to its shareholders and top executives in the form of stock buybacks and dividends. And like every major corporation, UPS will pay for that wealth extraction by laying off as many workers as possible. That may reduce the production of goods and services, but so be it if it generates more money for shareholders and executives. In big business today, wealth extraction always comes first. So this is a somewhat lengthy article here. Here I'm going to link. There's Les Leopold. So check. So go subscribe and check this one out. Again, Teamsters Union represents nearly 300,000 UPS hourly workers will fight these recently announced layoffs. Sean O'Brien basically said that UPS agreed and obligated to create 30,000 Teamster jobs under the current National Master Agreement. Yeah, but that runs through like 2028. They don't have to do that right now. He says if UPS wants to continue to downsize corporate management, the Teamsters won't stand in the way. But if they intend to violate our contract or make any attempt to go after hard-fought, good-paying Teamsters jobs, UPS will be in for a hell of a fight. That's nice rhetoric coming out of Sean O'Brien. I don't believe it. I don't believe he would actually fight UPS corporate. And I don't believe that he has any power over whether they decide to close facilities and lay off workers, because he gave that power away when they signed the master agreement 3 years ago. So, again, blaming the Trump tariffs for every sin imaginable may be emotionally satisfying, but letting larger corporations and their Wall Street handlers off the hook when it comes to job destruction, which the Democrats have done for more than a generation, is in large part why we have Trump in the first place. And that's why I brought this article. Okay?
Just remember one thing, the bigger the smile, the sharper the knife.
48th rule of acquisition.
That is correct.
The Ferengis. The capitalism.
Workers of the world,
unite. Beautiful. All right. So finally, we have our friends that are fighting cancer. Shanda got a very positive PET scan result back, thankfully. We were all a little nervous this week. She started her GoFundMe again.
It's not a tumor. It's
Well,
not a tumor at all.
Hopefully it's shrinking to the point where we can really say that. Haven't gotten there quite yet, but it's shrinking and it continues to shrink, and she's kicking cancer's ass, but she needs our help. She's raised over $1,000 since she opened it back up. But please, if you're able to support her. I also messaged with our friend Andrew from Action for Assange. They've had to raise their goal a couple of times because they keep hitting it. Thank you so much to everybody who's supporting Anna Marie's fighting brain tumors. They had to move to Cincinnati for 6 weeks for the treatments. Andrew packed up the car and went this week, I believe. And again, anything we can do to help them in their fight, it really is tremendous and important. Tremendous. We need a lot of money because the government's not doing shit to help.
Very nice, very big.
We love Andrew and his daughter, 12-year-old girl. She's got tumors that are impacting her eyesight, her optic nerves. You can read in the GoFundMe that I just linked in the chat about her. But 5 days a week, 6.5 weeks, she's going to be going through treatments. So they're moving to the area. That's going to cost a lot. So anything that anybody can do to help we really need that help. Two other housekeeping. Yes. 2 other housekeeping items. I did a one-on-one this week with my buddy Ryan from the Independent Review. Okay. Ryan has been doing a weekly compilation show on, now it's also co-streamed to the AM Wake Up channel on Fridays. 118 weeks straight, has not missed a week. Love that dude. I remember when he first popped up on my radar, it was like first or second episode. We even co-streamed an episode of the Independent Review way back, about 100 episodes ago or so. We're going to bring it back. And even though Steve runs it on AM Wake Up on Friday mornings at 10 Eastern, and we co-stream it to our Twitter channel, I talked to Ryan, and we're also going to be co-streaming it, or going to stream it on Monday nights, because we don't stream anything on Monday nights on INN. So we're going to be streaming the Independent Review, which is, again, I'm probably not going to send it to YouTube, because I'm a little worried that we could get struck for some of the stuff they talk about there. But it'll go to all the other INN channels. And it's, again, this week it's 4 hours long weekly compilation. And actually, this week he included some of my conversation with Nature Boy on the Third Rail. But you've got The Last American Vagabond and James Corbett. And he includes segments from AM Wake Up and the What's Truth podcast with Wheezy. And if Whitney Webb is in a segment, you'll see
Wheezy
her.
F baby.
You'll see her in there. Then you've also got David Icke. There's some David Icke stuff. You got Charlie Robinson and Union of the Unwanted. A lot of Indie Media Award honorees get featured every week, and I'm honored that Ryan decided to include our stuff. Ryan also, by the way, I gave him an Indie Media Award honor for video editing. We created a category for him and Orf and Shut the Fuck Up, Shitlib Joe and Turncoat Don and the guys that the people that make incredible videos like that and compilations. So we spent about 100 minutes talking about his background, why he got into this, talking about raising a family because he's got young kids like I do, and what do we do as far as, can we create some kind of a media in independent sphere that can appeal to children, because I feel like we're losing our kids to shitlib corporate TV, to the Disney Channel, to YouTube, and there isn't much countering the corporate media out there for our kids. So we talked about some of that stuff. So what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Also wanted to mention IndieNewsNow.com. That is our news aggregator website where I have plugged in over 100 RSS feeds and Rumble channels. We're going to be bringing in more. We're going to break it up into different categories. We haven't done that yet. But you can also watch this stream live and any INN stream live at IndieNewsNow.com/live. And we're actually live there right now. I'm going to put that up so everybody can see it. So by all means, go check out IndieNewsNow.com.
Bookmark Indie News Now. Bookmark it.
Oh, listen to those smooth tunes. All right. And I'm going to put that link in the chat for everyone to be able to bookmark. That makes it a lot easier. All right. And it's not Indie News Snow. It's not New Snow. It's Indie News Now. All right. There's also more about the network and about each member. Okay, where you can find us on all the socials and all the different people in the network, as well as some of the shows and the newsletters and places you can find us. All right, there's also
coming to a Substack newsletter near you.
Maybe there's a way to support the channel right here, and that goes right to our Stripe, and you can do that through Cash App, Google, Amazon, any credit card, you name it, that comes right to us. There's also the merch store. INN merch store. We're going to be updating our INN merch store and swinging it over to Ryan's merch store. He's been working on one where the prices will be a little bit better. But by all means, pick up an INN beanie for the winter time. But now we've got tank tops. So Anna Mayers likes the tank tops. We've got a Jesse Jet tank top with the Zago Brothers illustration and the INN logo. What's that?
Yep. Tanky tops.
Tanky tops, right? Yeah. Get your INN logo t-shirt. I have this one. I love it. It's so comfortable. Oh my God. I think I bought this one, the Comfort Tee. All right. The $23.99 one plus shipping. So comfortable. I have it in black. So by all means, if you're able to, you can also support the channel by picking up some merch. IndieNews.shop. You can get there directly.
And what better way to say I love you than with a gift of a spatula?
Oh, okay. A spatula, sure.
INN spatulas.
All right.
How do we not have INN spatulas, bro?
Spatula City.
We might. Support independent media, and you can do that there. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, or INN newsletter. We're going to take about 5 to 10 minutes and reset, and we'll come back for boats smashing into other boats. This has been really good. Thank you so much. Appreciate everyone on Substack that's been watching live. We're going to cut it off in a couple of minutes and then come back to
chat.
YouTube.com/INN8 the Ocho. I'm going to put a link over on Substack so you can join us over there, because I'm not sending the next stream out there tonight. But thank you, everyone, really, who joined us over there. Thank you to everybody, of course, on YouTube and Kick and everywhere else where you've been watching. Really appreciate it. Again, this is How Do We Miss That on Indie News Network, indienews.network. You can find us, all the channels for the network, and support independent media because we need it more than ever. I love you all. Have a good night, everyone.
Keep listening to what Little Boats have to tell you. See you in a bit, fam.
Bye, Felicia.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen? To 50,000 died, and now we know our mission. We form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.